Hello and welcome to another video and podcast from Fantasy Football Scout. My name is Tom and today we've got another team reveal for you, and to do that I'm joined by Pranil, aka Late Riser, from the FPL Wire and Fantasy Football Scout Pro Pundit. How are you doing, Pranil?
Doing good, man. It's not too long now until the season kicks off, so looking forward to it.
Yeah, definitely. How are you feeling with 2 weeks to go? Are you close to being locked in or what?
Feel like I have like 5 or 6 picks that I'm fairly settled on, but a couple of pieces of information might just turn things around. So, I'm being flexible. I'm not being too attached to my picks at the moment. We'll see how we feel closer to deadline.
Yeah, maybe events like a Haaland hat trick. I don't know, but yeah.
He's been in my draft since the beginning. Spoiler alert.
Yeah, he seems like he's only getting in more teams. But yeah, so yeah, we'll get into your team in a bit. We'll chat a little bit about Man United as well, because I know you've been writing about them on site. But first of all, I've just got to give a shout out to the brand new Fantasy Football Scout app, which you can get on the App Store and on the Google Play Store right now. You can get all the members' features like projected points, heat maps, comparison tools, fixture tickers, and you can read the articles on there as well on your phone. We've been working really, really hard on this, and I think it's great. So yeah, check it out. The link is in the description below, and you can download it from your app store right now.
The Android version got live a couple of days ago. I've been playing around with it. I've been looking at data in the members area. On the app, it's just so useful to have it on your fingertips on an app. Very smooth.
Yeah,
I'd recommend
definitely.
it.
Yeah, a long time coming for sure, but it's here now. Cool. So we'll kick off. I'll bring up the fixtures on the screen for the podcast listeners. I've got the first 5 game weeks filtered by difficulty. So Fulham are top, then Liverpool, Newcastle, Palace, Man United, and then at the bottom we've got Brentford, Arsenal, Wolves, West Ham, Spurs, and Man City. So Pranil, when these came out a month or so ago, what was your sort of initial thoughts? I'm guessing Liverpool stood out to you.
Yeah, Liverpool stood out to me. I was like, I need to maybe start with Salah and maybe Trent if I feel like. So that was my initial thoughts. I thought Arsenal first 3 were actually not too bad. It's just that they're at the bottom of the ticker because game week 4 and 5 is Spurs away and City away. So again, the first 4 might not be bad from an attacking perspective. I do worry about the defenders in game week 2, 4, and 5. And City, I thought they had I wouldn't call it tough. They just scored 4 goals against Chelsea a couple of days ago. But outside of that, I think their first 4 are pretty all right. So I was thinking, especially game week 2, it's Liverpool face Brentford at home and City plays Ipswich at home. And Haaland seemed like a very strong captaincy option. It felt like hat trick potential. So I wasn't sure if I wanted to go without Erling to start the season.
Yeah, like lots of people, I think I've been on Haaland the whole time as well. What do you think about captaincy? Sort of looking at that game week 1, Salah, Ipswich, Isak at Southampton. Who do you think is like locked in for you there? Have you decided on captain?
I was talking to Ivan FPL Rouser, who's an Ipswich fan, and he mentioned to me, and he's contributed on all the Ipswich articles on Scout as well. He mentioned to me that at home, Ipswich tend to give it a go. So wouldn't be surprised to see a little bit of a basketball match in game week 1, which is something that tends to happen when Liverpool face these promoted sides game week 1. So I reckon I'll go that way with Salah captaincy.
Yeah. I think they drew 2-2 at Fulham a couple of years ago, I think, and obviously Salah's great in game week 1. So yeah,
Yep.
definitely a strong shout. What about your club, Man United? They're actually quite high on the ticker. They're 5th for the first 5. Fulham at home on that Friday night. Give you something to shout about on the first day as well. How are you seeing them at the minute, and from their pre-season as well?
So in terms of people we have available at the club, we signed Euro, but he's out injured for 3 months. Holland is out for 6 weeks, so Zoxy is probably going to be thrown into the mix from the off. But one thing that's in terms of attack, I do expect us to be better than last season, but I don't expect us to be really good. If I had to predict, United would finish probably somewhere between 5th and 8th is how I would expect us to do this season. But improved performance from last year is how I see us.
Yeah, I mean defensively, you'd think it can only get better, right? Especially if
Yeah.
Martinez stays fit as well. What
The
about
key with
Euro
this
there?
is
Sorry,
See,
you go.
we need to find a midfield partner for Mainu because Casemiro's lost his legs, and if he's playing week in week out, then those open gaps in the center of the park are going to remain, and that's going to be a big problem.
Yeah. What about, you touched on him there? What about with Yoro being injured? Who do you think will partner Martinez at the start of the season?
Maguire, expect Dalot, Maguire, Martinez, and Shaw to start the season as the back four, unless we get Delete in the next week or so. Then it might be between Maguire and Delete. But it's Martinez and Shaw came to training today as well, so I think it's enough time for them to be in the system and be ready for game week 1.
Yeah, definitely. And then one more team I want to ask about was Spurs, because they're quite low on the ticker, but they do start with Leicester and Everton. And I know you've got a bit of a reputation for like punting at the upside, and for me, those two fixtures for Son scream upside. Is that something you're looking at, despite them being quite low on the ticker?
Uh, the problem is that I want Salah and Haaland more, and they seem like a little more reliable to me. So that's where I am. And I always feel like it's easier to move out of the most expensive assets in the game rather than buying them if they explode. And that's why at the moment I'm not looking to start with Son. If anybody wants to punt their start of the season, I wouldn't talk them out of it.
Yeah, cool. So yeah, before we bring up your team, we'll maybe give a little bit of context. So what are you thinking about a wild card? Because I had Pras on the last video, and we brought up two drafts. He had a game week 4 wild card team and a game week 6 wild card team, and they were sort of Haaland and Salah were differences, and there was a lot more Liverpool in one of them as well. So are you setting up your team with a week in mind, or are you just playing it as it comes?
I do have a 5 week wildcard window sort of in my mind when I'm picking my team. So uh, I won't necessarily wildcard game week 6 if my picks are doing well and there isn't any need to wildcard, but I'm likely to wildcard game week 6 is how I would call it. Because I feel like this season starting off well is even more important because if people hit the right picks early on, they might just roll and it might get difficult to catch them, which is why I want to be aggressive in the first 5-10 weeks of the season, not really think about saving my transfers or rolling my transfers, and want to arrive at a decent, steady team by the time game week 7, 8, 9 are around. And then I'll think about rolling if I have to.
Yeah, that's interesting you say that, because most managers I've spoken to are really keen on having sort of picking a team for 3 weeks and having 3 transfers and building that up. So are you thinking more you can maybe exploit that by going early and jumping on
Yeah,
opportunities that people won't?
yeah, that's the thing. Especially, I feel like if you go Haaland, then you're going to have one of Salah or Watkins. And both Salah and Watkins have a very sharp turn of fixtures around game week 3 or 4. So we will want that other sort of premium that we're missing out on, which is why I feel like early transfers are almost inevitable. I think you're kidding yourself if you're planning for 3 or 4 weeks and you think you're going to roll because opportunities, price rises, it's all early season. We're going into game week 1 more so this year than any other year because most of the most of important FPL players, the likes of Palmer, Saka, are just getting there. They haven't had preseason, so we might get a lot more information in the first 3-4 weeks than we've had in previous seasons as well. Which is why I don't think I'm looking at rolling transfers, especially if I'm looking to wildcard, because I feel like the value of an early wildcard is even stronger this year, and the value of a late wildcard is sort of diminished because of the ability to roll your transfers up to 5. Because if you're at a steady position, game week 7, 8, wherever that might be, at that time you can always sit on having seen enough information, having seen enough data, and then making judgment calls which might be more accurate based on 8-10 weeks of data compared to just 3 or 4. So that's how I see the game.
Yeah, really interesting. So we'll
Mm.
bring up your team now. I'll read it out for the podcast listeners quickly, and then we'll get into it. So in goal, you've got Dean Henderson. At the back, you've got Gvardiol, Munoz of Palace, and Ian Matson, the new Aston Villa left back. In midfield, you've got Salah as captain for the minute, Jota, Eze, and Kunku. And then up front, you've got Moniz of Fulham, Erling Haaland, and Isak. And then on the bench, you've got Bentley, Harwood Bellis, Harry Winks, and Barco as a 4 million defender. So I guess you touched on it there, but Haaland and Salah, are they sort of essential for you? Do you think have you tried drafts without them, and Do you think you need them for captaincy really?
I think I need them for captaincy, and I just think with Palmer and Saka, uh, and Foden, all three of them, the sort of lower bracket to Salah, they're joining their respective camps late. So I do think they might take a while to get going as well. So my thinking is if I feel like I need to sell them for the Palmers and Fodens and Sakas of the world, it's easier to sell them and then spread your cash around, which is why I have a very thin bench as well, because I want to make sure I'm not making it difficult for me to get to any player that I want to. That's why I'm starting off with a premium defender, a premium midfielder, and a premium forward.
Yeah. I really like this team, to be honest. It's kind of similar to lots of the others in that you've got Haaland and Salah, but there's some big differential picks that I haven't seen too often. So we'll start there with Jota. Talk to me about him. He had a good pre-season friendly the other night, which has got people chatting about him. But is he sort of a placeholder for that other Liverpool guy that emerges? Could maybe Gakpo as well, or how do you see Jota?
It's a couple of things. He could be starting the first couple of weeks as Liverpool's starting forward. And yeah, he's not reliable for minutes. But there are certain players for which you maybe allow this punt and the lack of reliability for minutes because they've got genuine race potential. Diogo Jota as Liverpool centre forward in the first game against Ipswich sort of fits that criteria for me, where he could offer, it's similar to Son, except that Son is much more nailed on for minutes, but he's got a good start of the season. He's got Ipswich, Brentford, United, Forest. If he starts the season well, I don't need to hold him for too long, especially since I'm looking. And his price point is such that there's a lot of midfielders in the 6.5 to 8.5 million bracket. So if I want to, let's say, move to a Bruno or Odegaard, or if I want to move down to a Rashford or switch to a Gordon, it's a lot easier to do that because I like the price point. It's in between the 8.5 and the 6.5 million bracket. That's why I like the pick.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, he's got a massive explosive potential, and against the newly promoted team as well. First up, yeah, keeping in the midfield, you obviously got Eze there. Do you worry a little bit about Palace with Elise gone and Mateta still not back at the Olympic? Or he's at the Olympics, he's not back yet. So yeah, talk to me a little bit about Eze.
My worry about Eze is primarily whether he's going to be at Palace by the time we start the season. Now, we read reports today that Alvarez might be leaving the club as well. So I do expect City to dive into the market, and Eze is sitting as an obvious pick for one of the top clubs to pick up, and he seems like sort of like a City pick. So that's my worry. But outside of that, I rate Glasner. I rate the players that are at Palace. Kamada, I think, is a good player. Edward's done well. They picked up Sar as well, and more importantly, I like the spine of the team. There in midfield, they've got Wharton, Lerma, one of Dukure or Kuyate. I just think that's a very solid midfield, and I just rate the manager. They've got good fixtures, so I'm not too worried about that. He ticks all the boxes that you want from an FPL midfielder. If he's at Palace, minutes are a guarantee. He's got penalties, he's got set pieces or the fair chunk of set pieces in my opinion. He plays very advanced, and his age is at such a point that he could still have more in his tank in terms of growth potential as well. So he ticks all of those boxes for me, which is why he feels fairly obvious to me as a pick, as long as he's at Palace.
Yeah. What about sort of? Do you see him as better value than Bowen and Gordon, who are slightly more expensive as well?
Gordon's the one that I am worried about not owning. Bowen, West Ham don't have really good fixtures to start the season. They play Villa at home, Palace away, City at home in the first three. So I'm willing to wait on Bowen as a pick. Gordon has a great start of the season, so I won't be surprised. Like he's in the mix for these two midfield spots where I have Jota and Eze at the moment. Gordon's the third one that I'm really considering, and he could be in the mix for me.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so we'll stick on Newcastle with Isak there. You got him in, maybe not to captain, but is he pretty essential for you?
He's obvious. Yeah, I think he's
Yeah.
essential. Like, given the fixtures, given the price point, given how ridiculously good he is, there's literally no reason to not own Isak in my opinion.
Tempted to captain in game week 1?
Yeah, tempted to captain. We'll see how Liverpool are against Sevilla in their last preseason game, but I'm definitely tempted to captain.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so we'll talk a little bit about the defence now, because this is probably the different part of the team. I haven't seen Matson. I don't think I've seen him in any teams. I haven't seen Munoz in too many teams either. So you really targeting that offensive fullback, wing back type player.
Yeah. Munoz even isn't even a wing back. Like many times he was playing in that center forward role. I almost feel like he's double OOP in terms of his role. If you watch highlights back from last season. Munoz was goal hanging inside the 6 yard box on multiple occasions. It was just happenstance that he didn't get a goal. So I think and I like that because that's the reason why he's not very highly owned. If he got that one goal, he probably would be slightly higher price, maybe, or definitely higher owned. So, like I told you, I rate Palace, I rate the players, I rate the managers, and he's he's one of those picks that I'm set on to start the season with, irrespective. Matson is interesting because Villa have a good start to the season, and I want to sort of have like a perma play defender instead of two rotating 4.5s if I can help it because uh, Emery likes to do the box three at the back where Konsa sort of shifts in as the third center back, and the one who plays as the left back tends to bomb forward. We've seen that with Dean as well. So uh, he's cost them a lot of money. I'm hoping he's first choice. I know Villa are playing in Europe, I think between game week 4 and 5. But if he starts 4 out of 5 in those first five, I think he'll offer enough value for money.
Yeah, I mean, as a Chelsea fan, I know all about him, and he is seriously attacking. He can play on the wing. He played on the wing in the Championship for a season for Charlton, I think, and then he obviously scored in the Champions League semi-final last year as well. So he's got it all, and I suspect You would think that he's going to start surely if they've paid that much
Yeah.
money, but yeah, but you
Do you think
also
there's enough talent with him?
yeah, for sure. I mean,
Yeah.
he got to Champions League final with Dortmund, I think. Yeah, for sure. I think he's good enough to play in the Premier League every week.
All right.
And what about Konsa though at 4.5? I guess that's sort of maybe the safety pick if we don't
Yeah.
get confirmation.
So the thing is, we do have 4 or 5 4.0 million picks as options. So I feel like Konsa just doesn't offer the attacking threat that a Matson does, which is why I feel like I sort of prefer to a 5.0 and then two 4.0s compared to a 4.5, 4.5, 4.0, unless I'm squeezing somebody in with leaf days. Because you do want some attacking potential, because outside of Arsenal and City, nobody really showed clean sheet potential. So you do have to rely on attacking returns, is what I think.
Yeah. And speaking of attacking returns, you've obviously gone for Gvardiol, who was incredible at the end of last season. I guess sort of the other options there, Van Dijk, Arsenal, less attacking, and or potentially going up to Trent if you can. So is Gvardiol your preferred premium pick at the back?
So that position is likely going to be one of Trent or Guardiola, in my opinion. Because if I go Trent, then I do like a couple of options emerging in the 5.5 midfield brackets, specifically Minte, who's looked sensational in preseason. And there's Rogers as well, there's Kamada as well. So there are a few options at that price point. And so Trent, again, somebody I'm going to monitor what sort of role he plays in that last preseason friendly. If not, I like to have Guardiola there. I want to have a premium midfielder because Trent has Forest at home and Bournemouth at home in game week 4 and 5. So if I do want to switch to Trent, if he looks irresistible as a pick, I like to have my money parked in sort of a premium defender, which means that it wouldn't take too much to get Trent if the need so arises.
Yeah. So have you ruled out Arsenal defenders?
Yeah, because it's the price points and it's the fixtures in game week 3, 4, and 5. I feel like Arsenal defenders are going to be in my consideration if and when I wildcard around game week 6 because the fixtures turn really good after that. So that's when they'll enter my thinking.
Yeah, I agree. It's just that game week 1 is hard to look at, isn't it? With Wolves at home,
Yeah.
but yeah. What about Arsenal attack as well? Is it similar thinking with the fixtures there?
Yeah, similar thinking with the fixtures. I don't mind Odegaard as a pick. I don't mind Kai Havertz as a pick as well. But the thing is, Gabriel Jesus has had a strong preseason as well. So we don't know whether Kai is going to be playing as 8 or a striker. There's a little bit of doubt there. I think he's first choice striker. But I feel like there's enough picks around and we can see what's happening at Arsenal and then invest in them after game week 5.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, so looking at the keeper now, you've gone for Henderson, obviously. You've said how much you love Palace there and doubling up in defence as well. So a couple of things. Are you set on a 4.5 keeper, I guess, and you're not tempted to spend more? And then do you think Henderson is the best 4.5 keeper?
Yeah, he seems like the only one who seems to be nailed. We had quotes from Nuno today not telling us who the first choice forest keeper is, and he's the other one in consideration at the moment. So in my head, it was one of these two because they do have decent fixtures to start the season with, and Henderson's played I think every preseason friendly. So and there's rumors of Johnston leaving the club as well. So I think that's where I will go in terms of there's nobody else who's probably an option at that price, in my opinion. I don't want to spend more. I don't think I'm going to get value spending zero point 0.5 more for about 5 weeks, especially since I'm looking to wildcard early.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, I guess the Chelsea keeper. If we get word there, would you be tempted by him? If we get confirmation who's the number one?
I still feel Palace's fixtures seem better for clean sheets, especially the two home ties against West Ham and Leicester. They're teams not known for their attacking impetus, which is why I feel like the two clean sheet fixtures that I want to target. Vis-a-vis, if you compare Chelsea's fixtures, they've got City at home, then they've got Wolves away, Palace at home, Bournemouth away, West Ham away. There's no standout clean sheet fixture. I'd be worried about that, as well as if let's say Maresca announces that this guy is the starting keeper, and then he tends to have a couple of poor performances that worry about that switch as well. So there's a little bit of doubt there, and I don't think there's going to be a wide difference in points accumulated in the first 5 weeks. So I'm just going with the one that's got better fixtures.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And we haven't exactly looked solid in pre-season so far,
Yeah.
so it's probably good choice there. I guess finally we'll talk a little bit about the bench. You've obviously gone really cheap. We've had people on the channel talking about how they think it's important to have a really good, strong first sub and stuff so that you can roll a transfer if you get an injury. And sort of, I know you said earlier you're not looking at doing that, but are you happy with just going completely bargain basement on the bench?
If I find zero point 0.5 million by the end of by the time deadline approaches, I wouldn't mind having, let's say, Rogers as my eighth attacker or a Minte as my eighth attacker. So that is something I'm very much open to, especially if I go Trent instead of Guard and then I downgrade, let's say, one of Eze or Jota to a 5.5 million. That leaves me with money to get two attackers in that position. That's when I'd probably be open to. I don't mind it because if you own an expensive defender and the most expensive midfielder and forward, it's easy to then get into any other player you want to, as long as your money is not spread around too much. So that's sort of like team structure in my head.
Yeah, yeah, and it's interesting what you said about the 4 million defenders, because lots of people have been saying there's great 4.5s this year, but Konsa, Burn, Colwill, Martinez at Man United, you saying they don't particularly have that much attacking threat, so you're not that tempted
Yeah,
by them.
not tempted by them because their ceiling seems to be 6 points, especially with bonus not favoring them this year as well.
Yeah, fair enough. Cool. Well, that is. I think that's a good team. I love the Jota pick. To be fair, is there anyone who you really want to get in there that you can't quite? I know you said Gordon. Is there anyone else you're looking to
I'm
get in?
monitoring Bruno Fernandes very closely. So in preseason, United have been playing sort of like a very high press 4-4 almost, where the center forward and the 10, which has been Mount in preseason, are insanely attacking in terms of how high up the pitch they are. And thinking about who's going to be playing in that role, it's probably obviously going to be Bruno, along with either Xerxes or Sancho, who might play the false nine. We know Xerxes also tends to sort of drop deep, and he's sort of like a link up striker in comparison to Holland, who might be a purer nine. Holland tends to run the channels well. I think this might actually just benefit Bruno, because I think he could potentially be further up the pitch, and we know he's got penalties as well. He's got a great shot on him, and minutes aren't a doubt at all when it comes to Bruno. So he's the one pick I'm very curious about, and I want to monitor him in terms of how he's going to look in the Carabao Cup. But that's the one pick I'm closely looking at. I think there's high potential there.
Yeah, that's good tactical analysis there. And just to
Yeah.
segue into, I've got on the screen the title for Late Riser's latest article, which is on site now. It's a members piece looking at Rashford and Fernandes, who are obviously a little bit cheaper this year and have good fixtures to start. So do check that out on site with a premium membership, which you can get for 40% off in the description. And you'll be hearing plenty more from Late Riser in the preseason as well, and including his team reveals as well. So, Pranil,
Cheers.
thank you very much for your time. Interesting team there. Love the Jota pick. definitely, he's definitely on my watch list now after that, and also Bruno. I think that's really good insight, and that Fulham at home fixture on the Friday night, it would be pretty cool to have a big differential there. So thank you very much. Do you want to give a quick plug for the FPL Wire as well, where people can find you?
Yeah, so you guys must have seen Pras and Zofar on this channel as well. They're my fellow pro pundits. All three of us do a couple of 1 to 2 pods a week on the FPL, and we've got a lot of short form content on there, including some tactical analysis, team reviews, etc. as well. So do follow us on the FPL bar on YouTube.
Perfect. And yeah, check out the membership link in the description, download the app, like and subscribe to the video, and we'll be back this week with Scoutcast, burning questions, and more team reveals as well. Thank you very much, Pranil, for your time.
Cheers, Tom.